MSNBC and the left in general are absolutely freaking out as the Trump administration sent letters to universities, including Harvard, threatening to shut down federal funding unless they reform their current violations of civil rights laws. MSNBC's Lawrence O'Donnell went off on this unhinged rant, which pretty much sums up the left's talking points on this issue. This begins as O'Donnell gives us a sob story about the history of Harvard University, and then this builds. It builds in derangement and delusion as the clip goes on. After, I will share some important details from the letter sent to these universities, which runs counter to this narrative being told by O'Donnell here and reveals the truth about this situation and what's really going on. I'm Zach Costello.
Using his own library of hundreds of books as the very first contribution to Harvard University, a Puritan minister named John Harvard created America's first university in 1636, 153 years before the government of the United States of America was created. Harvard graduates played a major role in the creation of the United States of America, including the second president of the United States, John Adams. More presidents of the United States went to Harvard than any other school, and not one of those previous presidents of the United States, whether they went to Harvard or not, ever attempted to seize control over Harvard University as Donald Trump attempted to do before he got crushed by the oldest institution in America today. The oldest American in that sense, Harvard University. Donald Trump and his lawyers threatened Harvard, as they have already to other universities, that they would be cut off from any federal contributions to the important research, including life-saving research done at Harvard and other universities, unless Harvard simply, in effect, made Donald Trump the president of Harvard. Donald Trump demanded control over the admissions policy at Harvard University. Donald Trump demanded in writing control over all hiring at Harvard University, from professors to the maintenance staff to cooks in the cafeteria to the football coach. Every single job at Harvard University was to come under control of the president of the United States. And the president of the United States alone would decide who should or should not be hired at Harvard University, who should or should not be admitted to Harvard College. Imagine Donald Trump sitting there in the Oval Office deciding who should be admitted to a university, who should be admitted to Harvard Medical School or Harvard Law School or Harvard Divinity School or the Business School or the Dental School or all the other graduate schools. Donald Trump wanted to control all of that. His lawyers sent a letter to Harvard on Friday demanding all of that control and demanding absurdly and stupidly vague things. Today, Harvard's president, Alan Garber, sent a mass email to the Harvard community, which includes everyone currently affiliated with Harvard and everyone who has graduated from Harvard. And he said, no government, regardless of which party is in power, should dictate what private universities can teach, whom they can admit and hire, and which areas of study and inquiry they can pursue. We proceed now, as always, with the conviction that the fearless and unfettered pursuit of truth liberates humanity, and with faith in the enduring promise that America's colleges and universities hold for our country and the world. President Garber cited Harvard's ancient motto, Veritas, which is Latin for truth, and then said, seeking truth is a journey without end. No one working for Donald Trump can understand a word of what Harvard's president said today. In the Trump lawyers' threatening letter to Harvard demanding changes at Harvard, they kept repeating the phrase, reforms must be durable. That was their word, durable. Harvard has a lot to teach Donald Trump and his lawyers about what durable means. 389 years. How's that for durable? Harvard is much more durable than Donald Trump and his lawyers, and Harvard will be there long after them. The great circular idiocy of the Trump threatening letter to Harvard says that they insist, quote, the university must immediately shutter all diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. And in the same letter, they demand diversity, and that is their word. They demand, quote, hiring a critical mass of new faculty within that department or field who will provide viewpoint diversity. And so, in that Trump sentence, diversity is a good word. And diversity is exactly why Donald Trump is trying to take over Harvard University. That's what his letter says. And in another line of the same letter, they use the word diversity as a slur, as they usually do. That's how broken the brain of Donald Trump is. He doesn't know what diversity means. His lawyers do not know what diversity means, and they prove that by demanding diversity from Harvard University while forbidding Harvard University to pursue diversity. That is as stupid as you can get and have a law degree and dare to write a threatening letter like this to Harvard University.
So first of all, I'll say this. You know those presidents that he just mentioned there in the rich history of Harvard? Well, the problem is with Harvard's current admission policies, had they been in place at the time, those white male presidents probably would not have even been accepted into the university. Next, here is what the letter addresses. This is a matter of the federal government not sending Harvard taxpayer money if Harvard continues to violate civil rights law, which is to discriminate based on race, sex, ethnicity, and religion through the following means. This is what Harvard is doing and needs to reform: governance and leadership, merit-based hiring, merit-based admissions, international admissions, viewpoint diversity, basically, which means freedom of speech, which O'Donnell obviously doesn't understand the difference between discrimination and violation of civil rights law versus the protection of free speech and ideas. Getting rid of egregious anti-Semitism, which is really just removing pro-Hamas terrorist supporters from campus, discontinuation of DEI, fair discipline practices, again, not based on skin color or sex, and allowing for whistleblowers and accountability. This is not government overreach, guys. This is the federal government doing its job to uphold federal law and ensure that taxpayer dollars, your taxpayer dollars, are being used appropriately. It's not that complicated. Harvard President Alan Garber issued a response saying that Harvard will not accept this proposal, stating that no government, regardless of which party is in power, should dictate what private universities can teach, whom they admit and hire, and which areas of study and inquiry they can pursue. President Alan Garber. Again, this is a question of federal funding being shut down for Harvard violating civil rights laws. The university is not totally private if it is receiving federal funds, right? Harvard should consider, if they want to be completely private and push their own ideology and agenda, doing so without federal funds. Hillsdale College responded to Harvard's post making that very point. As a true private university, there is another way: refuse taxpayer money. True, though again, none of us have the right to violate civil rights laws. Private citizens can't do this. None of us have that right. And we are all subject to federal crimes if we violate such laws. Let me know what you guys think. I'm Zach Costello.